All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the Surviving the Mental Health Crisis, a toolkit for teachers. My name is Joseph Jacobs. I'm the Senior Associate Director of Undergraduate Admissions at the College of St. Rose. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to this robust and engaging 90 minutes of professional development. Now, before we get started, we have some housekeeping, but as admissions, I have to do my spiel and I have to make sure that everybody knows about our initiative here with education. Now, here are some facts that probably all of us in this Zoom meeting already know, but I'm going to mention some of them. Did you know that the most popular undergraduate degree in 1971 was education? And now here we are in 2023, and it's less than 8% of the degrees that the undergraduate students are getting. In New York State, here in New York State, we have some of the lowest percentages of teachers under the age of 30. And we have dropped 19% as a nation in undergraduate teacher degrees over the last 20 years. Clearly, we've reached a pivotal moment in education in this nation, which is why, as a College of St. Rose alumni and a former teacher myself, I'm very enthusiastic to announce the Teacher Pipeline Initiative by the College of St. Rose. Some of you have heard of this. We're offering more continuing education credits. Like today, we are increasing our teacher education grants for adults who are seeking their teacher certificate and teacher degree for the first time. We're moving our master's in education completely online to improve accessibility. And of course, most significantly, we're offering free housing to all undergraduate students who come in as education majors between the fall of 2023 and spring of 2025. It's roughly a $30,000 gift that we're giving students who are going to be the future teachers of America, which is very exciting. And that's on top of the Authentically You Awards and the merit-based scholarships and the need-based scholarships that we already give. So that's my little spiel for admissions for the College of St. Rose. And just to let you know, we're already seeing the benefits. There's a 46% uptick in applications for education here at this institution from last year. That's very exciting. So our housekeeping, you want to get those CTLE credits, of course, make sure you stay on for the entire duration so you get your credits. As a former teacher, I know how that goes. You certainly don't want to spend time here and not get credit for it. And now, introduction. Dr. Steve Hoff, he is a licensed psychologist in New York State and Massachusetts and a licensed school psychologist in New York City. He has presented on the national and international stages on the topic of mental health for youth. Dr. Hoff, Steve, is a co-founder of Barrington Psychology Incorporated, which specializes in child and adolescent mental health issues and provides consultation to schools and other agencies. Steve spent several years as a school psychologist and crisis response trainer in New York City public schools. He's published articles in the journals Psychology and in Schools and Perspectives and in the National Association of School Psychologists monthly publication. Steve is the former clinical director of a residential school for adolescent girls with significant emotional and learning needs. He's a full-time tenured professor of school psychology here at the College of St. Rose, and he has helped develop our school psychology program philosophy and curriculum. And on top of that, he's just a great human being. So it is my pleasure to introduce our host for today, Dr. Hoff.
All right, here's what we're going to do. We're talking about a survival toolkit in the school. So here's my warning sign. I thought we'd start out with a couple of quick real-life survival scenarios. Let's see how you do. We're going to go true, false, okay? Do this for yourself. Answer for yourself. True or false, if a shark attacks you, hit it in the nose repeatedly to ward it off. Got your answer? True or false? The answer is false. You have to strike it with your fist at the eyes or gills. The nose is not as sensitive. Okay? That's important. That could save your life. Now you know. All right, number two. If you have to jump out of a building into a dumpster, drop straight down, tuck your head in your knees, and land on your back. True or false? Got it? All right, that is true. There's the visual. That way you avoid catastrophic injury to the front part of your body. Last one. If you're charged by a bull Stand your ground and attempt to fight the bull off. True or false? One of my grad students, Mia Menudo, said that she would stand and fight the bull. She's brave and strong, but she was wrong. What you're supposed to do is throw the articles of clothing away to distract the bull while you look for safety. All right, there we have it. So let's move to the schools. That's a picture of my school that I went to for elementary school, PS 117 in Queens, New York. I know we have some people on the screen from down in the city. I understand I can't see you and we're not interacting, so I'm just talking to all of you as we move ahead. So that is where we've been, as if you don't know. This is what's been going on in the schools, right? That looks like a Twilight Zone episode, right? That's a picture of the coronavirus. We've been living with this, with mask mandates. That's what kids have looked like in the hallways until recently. Thankfully, we're not with masks anymore. Right? We learned about social distancing, that this is a thing. People down in the city, seen that? Or that? And we've had back and forth with CDC recommendations about what to do with safety for the pandemic. Right? We've had things up and down. We've had different recommendations about vaccines or no vaccines, through 2022. Yale Medicine says maybe we should be putting our masks on again in December 2022. The Biden administration says that we're going to end the COVID emergency in May. I'll bet I'll be talking about that tonight in the State of the Union. World Health, though, says be careful. We're at a transition point. So really, where are we? It's kind of hard to say. Hopefully, we're kind of on the way out of this. But as you know, we've been living in it for the past couple of years with great effect in the schools. Just a few statistics for you. One of my terrific first-year students, Janet Daniels, put together some statistics for us. If you look at this stat from 2022, 10 million kids globally have lost a parent or caregiver to COVID. The estimates range somewhere in the ballpark of 200,000 kids in the US. Here's some statistics about from the adolescent survey from 2021. Let's look at the numbers. 55% of kids experiencing some kind of abuse, 30% with folks who have lost a job. Those are dramatic numbers, right? Lay on top of this the layer of what's been going on nationally with school shootings. And one of the things that we hear about is what kids are saying now is not so much if this happens, but when it happens. There's been kind of a change in the global psyche around safety to do with school shootings. Layer on top of that, what's been going on nationally with racial violence. Most recently, the horrific incident with Tyree Nichols. I put up a picture of this book here. I don't know if folks know this book, but this book, How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram Kendi, who happens to be from Queens, like I am. He was a teacher at American University. I think he's now out in Boston. But I highly recommend this as reading for anybody who wants to gain a really thorough historical and culturally relevant take on what it means to live as an anti-racist. It's a great book. I have a resource list for you. You should know that I know Jen Gish, the brains of the operation here, has posted. There's a bunch of resources in there. I'll be referring to a lot of them as we go. So this word, this German word, Zeitgeist, means the spirit of the time. So what I'm suggesting to you is that the spirit of our time has been profoundly affected by these several variables. Interestingly, I don't know how many of you know Duolingo, the language platform from schools. They from teaching different languages. They come up with a phrase every year that they say describes our time globally. Their 2021 phrase was this: "I am mentally exhausted." I thought was kind of spot on. Their 2022 phrase, "Please don't cancel my plans," from all the things that folks have missed out on. And you know from the schools, and for those of you who have your own kids, all the things that have been canceled. Then for us, events that haven't happened, please don't cancel my plans. I'm going to show a few more statistics, but I just want to back up and just give a picture of what's going to happen through the rest of this talk. I should have done this at the beginning, but we had the chaos of the breakout rooms, my idea. But what we're going to do is I had my timer set so that in 30 minutes, we're going to take a quick intermission so people can get up and stretch their legs. I just want you to know that so you don't feel like you need to leave at other times. And then we're going to have a couple of breakout rooms through the rest of the talk, which should be better because everyone's signed in. Okay, that's the plan. And then what we'll do at the end is we'll break on one last little workshop-y activity. We'll come back and save about 8 minutes down the stretch for questions. Okay, that's the plan. All right, so moving ahead, I think what we've been living with is kind of this combination of anxiety and hope at the same time. In 2021, the Surgeon General issues a report on what he calls the mental health crisis. This is kind of unprecedented, a Surgeon General warning about the youth mental health crisis. And I don't think that's an understatement. So look at these numbers. I mean, these numbers are kind of staggering, and it's looking at big numbers of meta-analyses, right? Looking at groups of studies, that 25% of kids at the time of this study met the criteria for depression. That's 1 in 4. 20% for anxiety. That's 1 in 5. Those are very big numbers. And while the numbers were high already, the prevalence of those symptoms over the course of COVID, like it says here, have doubled. Those are big numbers. I have a psychology practice. I work with a lot of crisis stuff, and I can say that this has been my experience, that ER visits are up, that suicidality, suicidal thinking is up for kids and for adults. Look at the stat for girls. It's kind of striking, right? It's up 30%, but it's up 50% for girls, which I think is really interesting. And if you read a little bit into why that might be, one of the things that comes to our attention is social media. We could be having an entire workshop, of course, about social media, but where kids have been living in social media with Facebook, and I don't know how much you know about Frances Haugen, but she was the whistleblower at Facebook, which made her way to congressional hearings about some of these social media platforms intentionally capitalizing on the vulnerabilities of young people. I don't know if anybody saw this, but I thought this was amazing. I just saw this article a couple of weeks ago, but the public schools in Seattle brought a lawsuit against Meta, that's Facebook, and Alphabet, that's Google, for and TikTok, and accusing these companies of intentionally harming young. So now it's in a lawsuit from the school district. I think it's pretty amazing. So I'm staying tuned to see where that goes. Don't get too depressed as I continue to hammer us with bad news. I'll only do that for another couple of minutes. I promise. And then we'll shift to, what to do about it. But here's another stat, which I think is important about drug use. When you work with kids who use substances, one of the things that you have to ask yourself is why they're using drugs. So we was talking about this in one of my classes last night. kids use drugs as an attempt to cope, right? To cope with stress, for emotional numbing. With the increase in social isolation that's happened over the past couple of years, this is what we've seen that's happened with increased substance use. So it's just another thing, another reality of what we're dealing with. Some of the research that's coming out about the effects of COVID on mental health and on academics is telling us what won't be a surprise to any of you, that we've had these gaps in groups to begin with, right? Based on SES, based on racial lines, more marginalized groups. What's happened with COVID is that the gaps that existed previously are getting wider, right? So specifically in areas of core subjects of math and reading, gaps are getting wider due to COVID. I have a link for you to this report from the Office of Civil Rights that goes into some of the emerging data. All right, a little bit of good news. Finally, thank you, Steve, that we know that a lot of kids are resilient. A lot of kids bounce back and aren't going to have bad effect from what's been going on in the schools. And what's interesting is that, you know, those with less risk factors are going to fare better. So I think you've probably all had some familiarity at this point with the ACEs scale, which is gaining a lot of airtime in the last number of years. The adverse childhood experience scale talks about difficulties that kids have had in these different areas. But what it doesn't talk about is the things I bulleted out at the bottom. Those aren't on the scale. Community violence, racism, other forms of discrimination. Those are factors that might lead to a kid not faring as well. And if we start to wrap our heads around, okay, what's going on with these kids, the mental health system in our country would say that they have anxiety, they have depression, they would all fit somewhere in this book, right? This is the Bible for the American Psychiatric Association, the DSM, and all these symptoms looked at again here, you know, it's just a different picture of symptoms of anxiety and depression. Just kind of give those a quick eyeball, that this is a lot of what the kids are dealing with. I'm going to suggest a little bit of an alternative view. Let me just speak to anxiety and depression for a minute. These are the parts of the brain that are affected by anxiety and depression, okay? The frontal cortex has to do with our thinking, with our cognitive processing. The amygdala is our emotional center and triggers the fight-flight response. The hippocampus is linked to memory. How important are all those things for learning? Critically important, right? So if we have kids who have been affected by anxiety, by depression, and importantly, I'm going to throw out this concept of complex trauma, which some of you have heard of. It's not in that Bible. It's not in the DSM. I think it should be. But basically, it's an accumulation of traumatic experiences. And what I'm suggesting is that what's been going on these last couple of years in schools, in a lot of situations, has been traumatic. I'm going to mention a documentary to you, which is called Resilience. It's a great documentary, and kind of the hero in the documentary is a pediatrician named Nadine Burke Harris, who actually, after the documentary, she became the Surgeon General in California. And she talks all about complex stress and how you have to understand that in kids, even as a pediatrician, much less as a psychologist or a teacher. All right. Total curveball to all of that is the notion of positive psychology. We're going to break this down and talk in some more detail in a little while about what some of these positive psychology avenues are. But the reason I'm putting this out here now is that it's a really different way of thinking than the medical model that looks at depression, anxiety, and problems. It's the flip side of the coin. The positive psychology folks look at what's working, what's good, what are our good emotions, how do we engage in relationships? And this acronym here, PERMA, is one of the ones that they use as a guideline. This sticker, I'll tell you a little bit more about later, that was custom made by a group of kids I work with for a really cool initiative that we're running in a middle and high school where I do some stuff. We have a positive psychology council. All right, on top of all that, one of the other things that I want to suggest is that a lot of folks over the last couple of years have been getting less exercise, just less movement. And there's some interesting emerging data about kids in the last year or two having low vitamin D levels, more back pain, more injuries returning to sports, eye fatigue, and inconsistent dental appointments. Just another variable in the mix for us to know about. So if that isn't depressing enough for you so far, kids carry this stuff in different ways, right? So do adults. And if we don't deal with it in happy ways, we tend to deal with it in destructive ways. Okay? In colleges also, one of the things that's been happening in colleges is kids have been worried about the health of themselves and their family. They've had issues with sleep and communication. And this is interesting. This is a survey from Inside Higher Ed that half of kids rated their education in college in the past year, 2021, as poor, right? So a lot of work to do on college campuses also. So it's been a roller coaster ride. If we were more live and interactive, we do our trivia question here. Maybe we can use the chat. Anybody who wants to write in the chat to Lita the answer to this trivia question, what roller coaster is this? Then we'll get that answer in a couple of minutes. Lita, let us know when you have an answer to that. And we'll forge ahead now. So raises the question of what do we need to do here, right? With all these gaps that we've experienced. We got to teach more, right? We got to have more programs and to make up for these gaps, right? That makes perfect sense. Can't do that. You gotta, we have to have a balance of closing gaps and meeting kids where they are, right? Anybody remember this from your undergrad? Remember this Maslow's hierarchy of needs? We can't be self-actualized if we're worried about stuff at the lower level, right? So we've got to find a balance, and we got to meet kids where they are. So if there's one thing that comes out of what we can do for kids in school out of this talk today, that's it. That's the one word that I'll suggest that you take home. It's connection, right? There's all kinds of programs, there's initiatives, there's manuals, there's interventions, but connection is something that is at our disposal and is a lifeline. It's a lifeline for kids. There's nobody better at providing connection for kids than teachers. That's just a true statement. I know it from when I was a student. I know it from when I consult in the schools now. That's just the truth. And the research on connection says that this is what we get: better mental health, less suicidality, and less dangerous behavior. Interestingly, of all the kids who seek help, or parents who are seeking help for their kids, for the kids who do get help, wrap your head around this number. 70% of the kids get the help at school, which is awesome. I mean, it just makes sense, right? That's where the kids are. The kids are at school, and there's more and more writing in professional circles about resources for schools, mental health resources for schools. I mean, you tell me if anyone here has tried to find a therapist outside the school in the last year, it's like trying to find a plumber, it's really hard to find a therapist. I get calls all the time. And, we're just kind of trying to triage the amount of people who are looking for an outside therapist. The more therapy we can provide in schools, the better. Good news is a lot of money is being thrown to resources in schools. I love that song every time I hear it. Denise, you know what that song is?
No.
It's not Star Wars. That is the theme song from the 1978 original Superman with Christopher Reeve, which I looked up today and I could not believe it was from 1978. 0 of my students know that reference. So we'll talk about us, enough about the kids. We'll shift a little discussion to us. The teachers. Here's what some of the survey data says about teachers. Here's what teachers want. Tell me if that's true. You can't tell me, but think about it. Right? Makes sense. Everyone went into this field for a reason, right? For a passion, for a care. That's what teachers want. It ain't easy. That's what we're up against. I call that picture, that's my youngest. He's 16 now. We call that picture the scowl. That's what we're up against. So this article in Education Week, just from March, tells us that teachers are reporting the same numbers that the students are reporting. Look at a number there. 1 in 4 teachers said that they're experiencing symptoms of depression. And principals are talking about their biggest stressor being supporting teachers. Half say that they're more likely to retire sooner because of the pandemic. Here's just a quick slide on some of the stressors: feeling burned out, coronavirus, student absences, etc. Right? The overall workload, unaddressed student needs, having to spend more money on materials. All right, so shifting gears to Toolkit, got to take care of ourselves first, right? I know you've heard that. Let's talk about some of the details of how. Right. We'll start with the basics. Sleep. Are you telling me that here we are talking about a toolkit for teachers and Steve Hoff is talking to me about sleep? Yes, I am. Sleep is foundational for mental health. I'm going to tell you just kind of a quick side thing. In my class, every year in my graduate classes, we set personal goals, right, to work on, and we do a self-care check-in in every class. For 2 years running, my goal was to get 7 hours of sleep a night. I couldn't make it happen. I finally, last year, hit my stride, and I'm pretty religious now about my 7 hours, but look at the range. 7 hours of sleep, 8 to 10 for students. Exercise, another one of the absolute basics of what we need to fit in, right? For healthy weight and bones and muscles and joints. For improved mood, lower levels of depression, better health, better blood pressure, better energy. But one of the dilemmas, right? How do I fit in the exercise? How do I get my 7 hours of sleep? That's my little market research. That's my dog Hazel before the hike. That's Hazel after the hike. And the last of kind of the holy trinity: sleep, exercise, and good nutrition, right? There's, I mean, you know this, there's volumes of research about what we put in our bodies and how it impacts on our health, but also on our mood and our mental health. But it's not easy, it's not easy to eat well, Good food is really expensive. It takes time to cook. One of my students in class, she was talking about eating better as her personal goal last week. And as we were breaking down how to get there, what she decided was what she needed to do was spend a few hours on the weekend just doing the food prep, right? Setting herself up for success during the week. So those are the big three. That's what I grew up on. I grew up with a single mom who was working all day. Anybody remember the Swanson TV dinners? So I used to eat the French fries, throw the rest in the garbage. That's what I used to do. So we're leading into the discussion about self-care. And you may have heard this cute little saying before, self-care isn't selfish. What I tell my students and what I try to live is that self-care is a way of life. It's a life philosophy, that we can get better at. Just talking about it doesn't do it, right? So there's a survey that, if we have more time and if we were in person, I'd have you complete. I gave you the link and I'm going to suggest that you complete it, but we're going to do an abbreviated version of it right now. So here's what we're going to do. I broke our discussion of self-care into these three areas, right? Physical, emotional, and spiritual. And I want you to think for a minute, and God help us, Lita, we're going back to breakout rooms. I want you to think for a minute. Uh-oh. Okay, is she going to be able to put us into breakout rooms?
I'm back. I got
Okay.
kicked off because my Wi-Fi cut out.
Right, I was going to attempt it, but thank God I don't have to. Okay.
You're
Physical,
good.
emotional, and spiritual. Think about these dimensions of self-care. It can be anything. Physical self-care could be, taking a walk, taking a bath, doing your nails. Could be anything. Emotional self-care. I don't know, reading a book, listening to music, having a conversation with a friend. The list is infinite. Spiritual self-care, everyone's spirituality, is what it is to them. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do it again. We're going back to the breakout rooms. Talk with the people in your room. What do you do currently in these areas? And listen, if your reaction right now is, uh-oh, I don't do anything, then it's good that we're having a conversation. That's okay. And what I love for you to do is identify something in this breakout room, right? Let's shift this from you listening to me to us making this a workshop. Identify something that you're going to take out of here, something that you're going to commit to building more into your daily life. So let's forge ahead. Okay. So that's the piece on self-care. Don't forget the survey, take it. And I think it would be a great idea, for everybody to support one another with this kind of lifelong endeavor, right? Of us being able to take care of ourselves. All right, so let's move to the concept of mindfulness. And I'm well aware that we've got 25 minutes, to cover these major things that I'm going to throw out that figure into our toolkit. It's a taste of all of them, right? We could be doing workshops on any single one of them. But mindfulness is not probably a new term for people. I just want to zero in on how we can turn it into practice real quick. So the definition of mindfulness means being present. It's being present in the moment, wherever you are. For us, that's right here, right now. It's not thinking about work tomorrow. It's not thinking about dinner. It's not thinking about anything else. It's being where we are. And the great scholars on mindfulness, including the great Thich Nhat Hanh, Vietnamese Buddhist monk who died last year, he wrote The Miracle of Mindfulness, which is a beautiful little paperback book that's a good read. He talks about the breath as being the pathway to being in the mindful moment. Sidebar, this is great stuff for kids. There are whole curriculums around mindfulness in schools. Mind Up, Learning to Breathe. I have them in your resource list. But for us, we're going to practice mindful breathing. Ready? You can do this anywhere. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do mindful breathing. So to take a mindful breath, and I have two people here. I'm going to see if they're going to be my model to see if I'm explaining it right. You're going to put your hand on your belly. I can't tell if you're seeing this, but it's kind of like filling up the balloon in your belly, right? Nice, slow breath from your belly. Breathe in through your nose. You can breathe out through your nose or mouth, whatever's more comfortable. What you're not going to do is take a shallow breath from your chest, right? Like this. In fact, interesting side note, in a panic attack, it's generally shallow chest breathing, right? We want to fill our belly, fill our diaphragm, slow things down. So here's what we'll do. We'll practice a mindful breath. We'll do 3. Okay, you ready? I'll count, you breathe. It's called 4 square breathing. Don't do it yet. You're going to breathe into a count of 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, and hold for 4. Okay, that's the instruction. You ready? Yeah, you can put your hand on your belly. That's a good idea. So here we go. You ready? I'll count, you breathe. Into 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 4. 2, 3, 4. Exhale fully for 4. Hold for 4. Again, in for 4. Hold for 4. Exhale fully. Hold for 4. Last time. Hold. Exhale. And relax. Right. That's mindful breathing. I kind of got into it on the 3rd breath and almost forgot to count. And if we had more time and we're in person, I would ask you what that was like for you, you know? Either it's relaxing and peaceful, or you're having a hard time staying focused. It's all good. You know, the point is that mindfulness is a practice, right? We work towards being able to just be where we are. That's the essence of mindfulness. Mindful breathing reduces anxiety, lowers blood pressure, and counters the stress response. This, you see the little picture up there, is called the half smile. Also, Thich Nhat Hanh talks about the half smile, which interestingly is based on what's called the facial feedback hypothesis. Believe it or not, when you do this half smile, it releases dopamine and endorphins in your body. It improves your mood. So here's what we're going to do. Let's practice the half smile. So what you're going to do, relax the muscles in your face from your forehead down to your chin. Allow the corners of your mouth to turn up ever so slightly. And adopt a peaceful facial expression. Now, you might think you either look a little bit like the Buddha or a little bit like the Joker. Either way, it's okay. It might look a little weird to walk around like that in the schools. Kids might think we're on psychedelics. Those are hot now, but no, it's a way to get into a mindful and peaceful state. That's the half smile. I'm mentioning the yoga pretzels. It's a box of yoga activity cards that I've gotten a ton of mileage out of with kid groups, even with adults. I do them in our grad school class and we rotate them around. I have different students pick the card we're going to do for the day. Since we're going all in and we've only got 20 minutes, we're going to do a card. So here, this card's called Gorilla. So you see the picture of the card? Everybody has to stand up. Feels good to stand up. Remember, we have bodies. And generally, this is a repeat after me, which is fun to do in a group. So here's how we're going to do it here. You say it out loud. Pretend we can all hear each other. And I'll know if Jen and Denise repeat because they're standing here with me. So squat with your knees open, down towards the ground and say, I am a flexible gorilla.
I am a flexible gorilla.
Come up a little bit and rest your elbows on your thighs. I am big and strong.
I am big and strong.
Now straighten your legs a little bit and swing. And that feel good? I swing and hang loose. Say it. Now swing a little more. My life is fun.
Life is fun.
There you go. That's the gorilla card. So the pack of yoga pretzels that you can get on Amazon for like $10. It's got a bunch of breathing cards, some activity cards, some simple yoga poses. You get a lot of mileage in the classroom. The apps are great, Headspace and Calm. I'm sure people know them. What you might not know is that you can get some free resources as an educator for Calm. I gave you the link for that. Check them out. It's great stuff. Stuff for sleep, stuff for mindfulness, guided imageries, all kinds of really good stuff on those apps. Some people use them in schools with their classes, and I think that's awesome. All right, we're going to shift gears to another major tool. And like I say, folks, you know, we got 20 minutes. There are entire courses taught on what we're going to cover in 3 minutes. So here's the concept. It's under the heading of cognitive behavioral therapy. And the premise in CBT is this, that it is our thoughts that drive our feelings. Think about that. It's kind of a profound concept. What do you mean? I just feel this. Well, no, I'm gonna say the reason that you feel that is because of how you're thinking about that. That's the premise in CBT. It's a very nice complementary skill to mindfulness. Mindfulness is being in the moment. Cognitive behavioral therapy is zeroing in to understand your thoughts. Your thoughts drive your feelings and are linked to your behavior. So it's based on the ancient Greek philosophers, the Stoic philosophers. It's not what happens to you. It's how you react. It's not the situation, it's what you do with it that determines your experience. I find that to be true and empowering. And actually, Albert Ellis, the guy who came up with the big model of rationally motive behavior therapy in the 50s, he describes this not so much as a psychology approach, but as a life philosophy. And I think that is really true, just like the ancient Greek philosophers spoke about it. So here's the visual, right? It's your thought bubble, right? What's going on in that thought bubble? And what's going on in that thought bubble at a given moment is called your self-talk. That's what you're doing. You're having self-talk. You're having it right now. Everyone's having self-talk right now. When's this talk going to be over? What do we got? 15 minutes left. What am I going to make for dinner? Oh my God, I got to get up at 6 o'clock tomorrow. You know, my kid is up. Focus on what you're thinking, right? That's our self-talk. I'm going to give you 2 quick examples of situations with an initial thought and what's called a reframe on that initial thought. I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget. Okay, example 1 is at school. You're going into the building. Here's what you're saying to yourself. There's so much stress in this building, I can't wait until this day is over. If that's your thought, how are you going to feel? Stressed, anxious, right? If you recognize that thought and say, look, I know there's stress here. I just sort of stats that guy showed me for the first hour of the talk. Things are off the rails. Of course there's stress. But I'm looking forward to having coffee with Sandy at 12, and I'm going to do the best I can in my classroom today. How are you going to feel then? Better. I didn't say jumping for joy. I said better. That's the premise. I'll give you another one. I'll give you an example with my son. A short example with my son, not the one that came up today. That's too complicated. Here's a short one. I can't believe my son left the sink full of dishes again. I'm going to kill him. That's my immediate thought. How am I going to feel? Angry, right? Frustrated, wait a second. Okay, he took the garbage out. He did his homework. Take it easy. He's 16 and inconsistent. I'll talk with him like a sane father later. How am I going to feel? Maybe still irritated that he didn't do the dishes, but I'm going to feel better. That's self-talk. Okay. So I think really zero in that that thought bubble. And this is a great thing to teach kids. You know, there are entire intervention manuals to teach kids about understanding their self-talk. Kind of goes beyond what we're going to talk about right now. All right, let's keep it rolling. In school, let's go back to the schools a little bit and bring some pieces together. If there's anything that I think is a great thing to do is to devote some effort with like-minded people to building a positive school climate. It's hard to do. I'm just going to give you an example of something I'm involved in now that's really fun. Remember that sticker I showed you? I started a positive psychology council in this high school, middle and high school. I had 10 kids and 3 volunteer teachers. We meet every Tuesday for 40 minutes, not real time intensive. We started this initiative. We talked, what can we do to make the school nice? And we started this random acts of kindness initiative. We got the principal to give us a bulletin board. We had one of the kids made a box in the wood shop. We made an announcement and we had people, there's the board. This is going on for a month now. Look at all the cards we have up here. Kids are dropping cards in the box and so are teachers. Random acts of kindness. Not a lot of, some energy and organization, but it wasn't rocket science to get this off the ground. And the cards are awesome. I just met with this group today on my way out here. I go to this school on Tuesdays. The act of kindness with a C. That kid needs a little spelling help. He became my friend when I had no one else to help me through the hard times. Here's another one. Always checking on students when they were going through tough times. The nicest teacher I know. Always motivating kids in and out of school. Being my safe teacher, one of my biggest inspirations in the gym. Super funny. That was for the gym teacher. Helping me when I had an anxiety attack. She asked me how my day was going, and that allowed me to share what's going on and let me organize my thoughts for another subject. So this thing has gained some momentum, right? So we decided, okay, what's next? And the same kid who made the wooden box, we decided what we're going to do next is we're going to pop up a positive psychology information booth once a week in the hallway. So I go into school a couple of weeks later, and this kid says to me, and we have a nice little wood shop in this school. And he says, I made a stand. So I said, oh, let me see. I go into the wood shop. Look what this kid made. I couldn't believe it. Made this beautiful wood stand that I just went to see again today. We're going to launch it after Valentine's Day. We're putting it on a school webpage. That's going to be our positive psychology information booth. The kids are going to man it with info about coping, about, scent therapy, you name it. There's 1,000 things that we can teach kids, right? That we can share with kids on the positive psychology realm. Doesn't have to be about anxiety and depression. We don't have to do that. Let's talk about being happy. All right, New York is looking at mental health days from school, but it's been shot down 4 times, but it's coming up again for legislation. I thought that was interesting. Dogs in school, always a good thing, right? These are all happy things. Okay, so I have a top 10 list here that we're going to run through, and we can call it the top 10 list. We can call it the top 10 tools, but this just kind of summarizes some things that I think are really good to hold and live in the day-to-day. It'll be review on some of the stuff we already spoke about and a few new thoughts. So let's go. We'll finish that by 5 o'clock. All right, number 1. One of the guys who volunteered for my positive psychology council, science teacher, Tim Schwartz. He said to me in the hallway a little while ago, he said, think like a proton. And I said, what? And he said, be positive. Get it? Protons are positive. So think like a proton. Stay positive. Courtesy of Tim Schwartz. That's number 10. Number 9, find your marigolds. There's a little story on this one here. There's a great article by a teacher called Find Your Marigolds. Look it up. I think I gave you the reference for it. But her point is that when you're out in a school, especially for new teachers, but for everybody, that marigolds are good in gardens. Marigolds are good for other flowers. They protect other flowers and they ward off disease. Marigolds actually do that. And she says, you got to find your marigolds in the school building. What she says also is be careful, because also in gardens, there are walnuts, black walnuts. A black walnut is a toxic tree. Find your marigolds, watch out for the walnuts. Now, here's a quick story. Anybody who's been affiliated with St. Rose knows my beloved Dr. McLaughlin, Mary Ann McLaughlin, she was a student here in 1959, joined the math faculty in 1965, and she's still here. She's still teaching. I was doing a focus group that she was in several months ago, and I mentioned that article, and it just so happens that Mary Ann McLaughlin had left a sign up that said free black walnuts for anyone who wants them. And I told her about that article, and she said, Steve, do you think that I was trying to poison you? And I said, of course not, Mary Ann. And we struck up a friendship, and she is one of my marigolds. I just love her and love to see her. I find her an inspirational person. And when I just came to the President's Day opening here at St. Rose a couple of weeks ago, I thought, you know what, President's Day back, I'm going to bring a little present for Mary Ann. And I went into the co-op off Central Ave, and I bought her a little primrose. I gave her the plant. I looked in the door at 7:30 in the morning into the auditorium. The first person I saw facing the President's stage in the third row was Mary Ann. I walked up and I gave her the primrose. And the next week when I went into my office, what was outside my office door? A hazelnut chocolate bar with a handwritten note from Mary Ann. Find your marigolds. All right, number 8. Fun is good. God help us if it's not fun. Simple. Number 7, gratitude. So, you know, gratitude is good for us. It actually helps us feel good. It improves our state of well-being. It improves our mood. So it's just a really good daily practice. Do I have the slide here? Yeah, I think I do. I'll just tell you another example with this guy. Remember this guy? Here was my attempt to practice gratitude on the ride to school when he was a few years younger. I say to Trevor, what are you looking most forward to today? He says, nothing. What are you most excited about today? Coming home. What are you grateful for? Nothing. That was it. That's the end of my story. My point is, it's not easy, and not everybody's going to come along willingly, but we are not to be dissuaded. Number 6, the serenity prayer. I ask this probably every week anyway, right? Everybody know the serenity prayer, probably, right? The wisdom to know the difference, things I can't change. I think that acceptance of that goes a long way. I think that's a good one to file away. Live the serenity prayer. Number 5, a little bit dramatic, but from Rudyard Kipling, we go to the law of the jungle. The strength of the pack is the wolf. That means that I bring power to my team. And the strength of the wolf is the pack. I get power from my team, right? We're a unit. We're a team in a school. I honestly think of every one of us on the Zoom call on this, of being on the same team. You know, we got to get power and energy from each other. Number 4, random acts of kindness. Just like we did with that initiative, there's a Random Acts of Kindness website, believe it or not, which you should check out. It's the Random Acts of Kindness Foundation. What you should know about Random Acts of Kindness is that being altruistic and volunteering stimulates the reward center of the brain and gives us what's called helper's high. Releases dopamine in the brain by being the person who gives. I thought it was really interesting. I was thinking about doing this talk, and as I was listening to some music on Pandora, a Starbucks commercial comes on, and in it, the woman is talking about the person having bought her drink in the Starbucks commercial. Little random acts of kindness go a long way. Number 3, a reminder to be mindful. That's it. Just a reminder of stuff we spoke about already. Number 2, a reminder to carry that little view into our own self-talk, so we have agency over it and can challenge it and structure it and revise it. And number 1 goes back to that 30-day challenge of self-care, of everybody picking something or some things to water and pay regular attention to, okay? So I know it's coming right on 5 o'clock. I want to be mindful of your time, body, mind, spirit, right? So here's what I'm thinking. I think we won't do this in a breakout room because it's 5 o'clock. Darn it. I wanted to, but I'm going to show some impulse control and not do it.